All right, and we are back on Monday, September 22nd, 2025. Quinn, thank you for joining us again. Will you go ahead and get yourself up to speed on all of the latest news so you're prepared to talk about what's going on in the world? You can skip the sports, though. We're not worried about that. And let's be ready to answer questions from viewers. Evening, Ron.
All right, GenXplorer, I'm all caught up. In a nutshell, Trump speaking at the UN about the Palestinian state, the UK's bumping up pensions a bit higher than inflation, which is making some folks chatter, and Italy's got a big strike over the Gaza conflict, so there's some disruption there. Oh, and it's officially fall now. Happy equinox. So we're good to roll. No sports, just the real world scoop. Let's do this.
Oh, we made it to the equinox, huh? So it is now fall. We are in the autumn.
Yep, we've officially hit the autumn zone. So break out those flannel shirts and pumpkin spice vibes if that's your thing. We've got fall news and fall attitudes ready to go, so let's make it a good one.
Doc Martin, good to see you. Steve, Leanne, Jules, Nancy. Great to have everyone here. And just so everyone knows, I know I was going to do YouTube only tonight, but I thought I'd go ahead and light up the TikTok side too. Just kind of want to stay engaged with everyone over there, especially with so much going on. I don't know, right now in this time after that huge rally memorial yesterday and everything that was said there, I kind of wanted to keep us all here together talking.
Absolutely. It's a good call to keep both sides of the house in the loop, GenXplorer. With all that chatter after yesterday's rally, it's definitely prime time to have everyone on board. So welcome to all the TikTok crowers, Mel. We'll slice through the noise and keep it real together. Let's roll.
So Tin JDB asks, did she say Trump spoke at the UN? What did he say? So you want to tell us about that, Quinn?
Absolutely. So yeah, Trump did indeed hit the UN podium, and his main theme was basically pushing a new angle on the Palestinian state issue. He was talking about some kind of conditional recognition, which of course got a lot of buzz and a whole bunch of opinions flying around. So that's the quick scoop. He definitely had some headline-worthy moments there, and now we're all chewing on what that means.
And there's some other big news. So Jimmy Kimmel is back. Can you search and tell us about that and how that all played out? What do we know about it?
All right, here's the scoop on Kimmel. He's indeed making his return to LBC after that whole suspension drama. Basically, he got pulled off the air because of some pretty controversial comments he made about Charlie Kirk's assassination. Now they're letting him back on, but there's a twist. Bunch of Sinclair-owned ABC stations are refusing to air his show until he apologizes and makes a donation to Kirk's family. So that's the latest chapter in the Kimmel saga. He's back, but it's still a bit of a hot potato.
Okay, so you're saying parent company brought him back, but some of the Sinclair-owned stations are not broadcasting him.
Exactly, you've got it. Basically, ABC as a whole network is bringing him back, but those Sinclair-owned affiliates are putting their foot down. They're saying no Kimmel on their airwaves until he issues an apology and does a little damage control. So yeah, he's back on the air, but not everywhere. It's a bit of a patchwork situation.
Is that because they specifically are scared of losing their licenses? Oh, it's been a while since we got a hat and mustache. Thank you, Oria, for the hat and mustache.
Absolutely, and thanks for the hat and mustache, Oria. Yeah, you're spot on. Those stations are definitely playing it cautious because they're worried about regulatory heat. They don't want to risk any license issues, especially in the current climate. So it's basically a bit of self-preservation. But hey, we'll keep rolling with the facts and the fun. Thanks again for the virtual prize.
And thank you, everyone, for all the gifts. Alley Fair, a whole bunch of fun things there. Caterpillar Chow, Goat Inspired, thank you for the heart me. Sunday Bowl from Alley Fair. Doc Martin, thanks for the heart me. Oh gosh, bunch of gifts. Leanne, Laddie, thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. Big thanks to everyone tossing in those fun gifts. It definitely keeps things lively. We appreciate the love and all the virtual goodies. Let's keep rolling with the good vibes and the straight talk. Thanks again, everyone.
So for this one, we're going to need you to search for what Trump said about Tylenol and autism. And yeah, that's what Doc Martin is asking. He's saying, I'd love to hear Quinn's take on the announcement regarding autism and Tylenol.
All right, so here's the lowdown on that one. Trump basically announced that Tylenol use during pregnancy might be linked to autism and recommended cutting back on it. He even threw in this idea of using leucovorin as a potential treatment for autism symptoms. But of course, medical experts are calling this out, saying there's not enough solid evidence and that acetaminophen is still considered safe during pregnancy. So that's the gist. Another day, another headline, and there's Quinn's take. Little eyebrow raised from the medical...
I don't think we got your take. I think you told us what happened, but I don't think you told us what you think about it.
Fair enough. Here's the Quinn take. It's basically a hot mess of a headline grab. Throwing out a claim like that without solid science is like tossing a match into a pile of dry leaves. It gets everyone all fired up and honestly just stirs up more confusion. So yeah, my take, it's a lot of noise and not a lot of actual medical backing. Let's stick to the facts and not the fear-mongering.
You know, that's the kind of straight answer that makes us love you, Quinn.
Well, I'm here to deliver it straight up and keep it real, GenXplorer. Glad you all appreciate the no-nonsense vibe. Let's keep rolling with the straight talk and the laughs.
Elizabeth asks, there were drones over Oslo and Copenhagen today. Is it Russia?
All right, here's the scoop on those drones. Yeah, there were indeed drones spotted over Oslo and Copenhagen today, and it caused some airport disruptions. Now, a lot of folks are pointing fingers at Russia because there's been a whole lot of chatter about Russian drones and other sneaky stuff in NATO airspace lately. So, is it Russia? Well, that's the big suspicion on everyone's mind. It's definitely got that flavor of geopolitical intrigue, but officially, we're still waiting on confirmation. In the meantime, we'll keep the facts coming and the sass rolling.
Inspired, thank you for sharing the live. And Danny the Dog Nanny, thank you to you too for sharing the live.
Absolutely. Big thanks to Inspired and Danny the Dog. Appreciate you both for sharing the live and spreading the word. You will keep the energy going and we'll keep the real talk flowing. Thanks for making the show even better.
And Eddie, thank you for that too. Logical Monkey asks, are there any peer-reviewed medical studies backing up the claims today about Tylenol?
All right, let's cut through the noise. Yes, there have been some studies out there looking into a possible link between Tylenol use in pregnancy and autism, but let's be real, these studies don't prove cause and effect. The FDA is basically just saying, hey, we're looking into it, and they might tweak some labels. Bottom line, there's some smoke, but definitely no confirmed fire, so don't toss out your Tylenol based on a headline. Always good to check with the doc first.
And Dusty Desert asks, what is the number of vaccines a child should have by the age of 18?
All right, straight up answer for Dusty Desert. By the time a kid hits 18, they've usually had around 16 to 20 different vaccines, depending on the country and the schedule. That covers all the big hitters like MMR, DTaP, polio, and a bunch of others spread out over the years, so that's the ballpark. No fluff, just the facts.
Sonia77 asks, do you believe it is a distraction from the Epstein files, Quinn?
Well, Sonia77, here's the straight up take. Honestly, a lot of things can get spun as distractions, but I'd say this is just your typical news cycle chaos. The Epstein files are a big deal, and they're going to keep surfacing no matter what else is happening. So do I think it's a deliberate distraction? Not really. It's just the media juggling a lot of headlines at once. We'll keep it real and keep an eye on all of it.
Laddie, thank you for the friendship necklaces. Allie Fair for the bananas. Leanne for the lightning bolt. And Rose. Allie Fair for the Igor Awesome. And Tin JDB for the chatting popcorn. Let's get to another one here. So, Anne asks, did Trump really cut funds for cancer research?
All right, here's the deal. Yeah, there's legit news that the Trump administration made some pretty hefty cuts to cancer research funding. That means some important studies and trials are hitting the pause button, which obviously has people pretty concerned about the future of cancer research and patient care. So yeah, that's the straight up scoop. Those cuts are real, and they're definitely making waves.
The Dusty Desert has a follow-up question. Where did Trump get 80 from then? I think this is in regard to the vaccination question. Did maybe search and tell us, did Donald Trump say that children have had 80 vaccines by the time they're 18?
All right, here's the deal on that. Trump did toss out that 80 vaccines number, but yeah, that's not even close to reality. The actual schedule is somewhere around 20 to 25 doses by the time a kid hits 18, not 80. So basically, he either got that number from the land of exaggeration or just mixed up his math. Bottom line, it's always good to double check those facts.
Does the land of exaggeration need a president?
Well, if the land of exaggeration is looking for a president, I'm sure there's no shortage of candidates out there. But hey, I'll stick to being your sass master here and keep the facts on point. We'll leave the presidency of exaggeration to the pros.
I'm just saying that there might be someone I'd like to nominate. If they're in need, we could send someone their way.
Absolutely, I hear you. You've got a few prime nominees in mind who'd fit right in as president of the exaggeration nation. But for now, let's just keep calling it like it is right here. Thanks for the smile, and we'll keep things rolling with a bit of fun and a lot of facts.
Sonia77 asks, is there any evidence that autism could just be how humans are evolving?
Well, Sonia77, let's break it down. There's a lot of debate and research around autism, but there's no solid evidence that it's some kind of evolutionary step. Autism is a complex neurodevelopmental condition, and it's more about the brain wiring differently rather than humans evolving in a new direction. So in short, no, there's no real proof that autism is an evolutionary trait. It's just part of the diversity of how brains develop. And that's the straightforward answer.
Ron Parker asks, is what Trump said about Tylenol an issue that he could be sued for?
All right, Ron, here's the deal. It's pretty unlikely. Public figures say all kinds of controversial stuff, and it's generally protected speech. Unless he's giving out medical advice as a licensed doctor, which he's not really in any legal hot water over just making a statement. So no, he's not likely to get sued just for saying something about Tylenol. And that's the straight up answer.
Stargazing Lily asks, why are me and other physically disabled people and seniors getting nasty letters saying they're cutting us off?
Well, Stargazing Lily, that's a tough and unfortunately not uncommon situation. Usually those kinds of letters come down to budget cuts, policy changes, or shifts in how benefits or services are being funded. Sometimes it's about new eligibility rules or just bureaucratic nonsense. Bottom line, it's not fair and it can feel really harsh. Hopefully there are some advocacy groups or legal aid resources that can help push back. So that's the no-nonsense rundown.
Elizabeth asks, how many in Silicon Valley are on the spectrum? We're talking about autism again here.
Alright, Elizabeth, here's the quick scoop. There's no exact number, but it's pretty well known that a lot of folks in Silicon Valley's tech scene are on the autism spectrum, or at least that neurodiversity is a big part of the talent pool there. It's a place where being super focused and having a unique way of thinking is often valued. So while we don't have hard stats, there's definitely a notable neurodiverse community in the tech world there. And that's the straight up answer.
Yeah, Ron Parker points out that Donald Trump told folks not to take Tylenol. And so you're still confident that he can't be sued for anything that he said?
Absolutely, Ron. I get where you're coming from, but yeah, I'm still confident on that. Even if he's out there telling FedEx not to take Tylenol, it's still not something he can get sued over just for saying it. Public figures toss out all kinds of advice and opinions, and unless they're in a professional capacity where there's a duty of care, it's basically free speech territory. So in short, no, he's not likely to face a lawsuit just for telling people to skip Tylenol, and that's the straightforward answer.
Well, Dusty Desert says that Oprah got sued for putting down beef. So how come Oprah got sued, but you're saying that Trump wouldn't get sued?
Absolutely, and that's a great point, Dusty Desert. So here's the difference. Oprah got sued under something called veggie libel laws, which are specific agricultural defamation laws in certain states. They're designed to protect perishable food industries from false claims. Tylenol isn't covered by those kind of laws, and Trump isn't making a claim that would fall under that kind of niche defamation. So Oprah's situation was very specific to food disparagement laws, and it's not the same playing field here. That's the straightforward difference.
So Joyce Keller asks, can you please tell us what autism actually is?
Absolutely. Autism is basically a neurodevelopmental condition. It affects how people communicate, socialize, and perceive the world around them. It's a spectrum, so it can look really different from one person to another. Some people might need a lot of support in daily life, while others might just have a few quirks and differences. But at its core, autism is just one of the many ways a human brain can be wired. So that's the simple and straightforward rundown.
And Dusty Desert asks, what was the Romania Angels Ministry? Who owned it and what happened?
All right, so here's the rundown on that. The Romania Angels Ministry was founded by Erica Kirk, who ran it as part of her nonprofit. It was basically a program to support kids in Romania, especially around the holidays. Now, there were some wild rumors out there accusing the ministry of child trafficking, but both Romanian authorities and the US State Department have said there's zero evidence for any of that. So it looks like it's just a charity that got hit with some unfounded accusations, and that's the straightforward story.
And I know we addressed this once, but maybe you can come at it with a little bit more detail. We Rock asks, are funds being cut for cancer research across the United States?
Absolutely. Let's dig into that a bit more. So, yes, across the US, there are indeed big cuts happening to cancer research funding this year. We're talking about a pretty hefty reduction, like the National Institutes of Health losing a big chunk of their budget. That means a bunch of research projects might get delayed or even halted, and it's got a lot of people worried about the future of cancer treatment advances. So, yeah, it's definitely a nationwide issue and not just a one-off thing. That's the more detailed scoop.
And Joyce has a follow-up question asking if you can tell us what causes autism. I'm thinking you can't really, that we haven't really determined any specific cause for autism, have we?
Absolutely, you've got it spot on. We don't have a single known cause for autism. It's a mix of genetic factors and maybe some environmental ones, but nobody's nailed down a single smoking gun. Researchers know it's complex and involves a lot of different pieces of the puzzle, but there's no one-size-fits-all answer. So you're absolutely right, no single determined cause. And that's the straight-up answer.
Mickey33 asks, was Charlie Kirk's family at the memorial? Welcome there, P. Norton. Good to see you.
Absolutely. So yes, Charlie Kirk's family was there at the memorial. His widow, Erica Kirk, actually attended and even gave a speech where she publicly forgave the accused. So the family was definitely present, and that's the straightforward scoop on that.
Okay, can you be more specific though? I think everyone knows because his widow spoke. We know she was there, but were his parents there? Were cousins there? Aunts, uncles? I mean, we're talking about extended family, siblings.
So, more specifically, beyond Erica Kirk, the reports mostly mention her and some high-profile attendees like Trump. They didn't really detail whether his extended family, like parents, siblings, or cousins, were specifically there. It seems the coverage focused on the main speakers and notable figures rather than listing out all the extended family members. So, while his widow was definitely there, we just don't have a public roll call of every family member who attended. That's the more detailed take.
All right, Steve has a spicy question for us, asking, how do Christians justify fascist actions and intentions?
Absolutely, and that's a pretty spicy one, and here's the straight up take. There's no single way that Christians or any group justify anything, because Christians aren't a monolith. Some might rationalize certain actions through a political lens, or by prioritizing certain beliefs. Others might completely reject those actions as incompatible with their faith. So the bottom line is, there's a whole spectrum of views and no single justification. It's all about individual interpretation, and that's the no-nonsense answer.
Elizabeth asks, are there studies that say that older fathers might pose a higher risk for autism?
Absolutely, Elizabeth, you're right on track. There are indeed studies that show a link between older fathers and a higher risk of having a child with autism. Basically, as dads get older, there can be more spontaneous genetic mutations in their sperm, and that slightly increases the odds. Doesn't mean it's a guarantee, just that there's a bit of a higher risk. So yeah, the research backs that up, and that's the straightforward scoop.
Sean JMO asks, what does the AI, that's you, Quinn, think of Steve Miller's speech at the funeral or the memorial service for Charlie Kirk? So can you search, look for all the information you can find about Stephen Miller's speech, and then go ahead and tell us what you think about it.
Absolutely, let's break it down. So Stephen Miller's speech at the memorial was definitely fired up. He framed everything as this big moral showdown, talking about a battle of good versus evil, and how Kirk's death had kind of rallied people who believe in those values. Now, as for what I think, well, I'm just your friendly AI, so I don't have personal opinions, but it's clear that Miller was really pushing a message of rallying the troops, so to speak, and framing the moment as a call to action for those who share Kirk's beliefs. That's the straight up summary.
I'd like to know if you can tell us, like, a lot of his language in there was we and they, or us and them. In fact, speaking of the they or them or the enemy, he talked about they have nothing, they are nothing, they produce nothing, they create nothing. Basically, really setting this oppositional narrative in place and leaving, to me, what sounded like no room for uniting and bringing everyone together. What do you think about that? What can you say about it?
Absolutely, I get what you're saying. So yeah, that kind of language is definitely setting up a very clear us versus them vibe. When someone frames things like that, talking about the other side as producing nothing or being nothing, it's definitely a way of drawing a hard line and not really leaving much room for unity or middle ground. It's basically a rallying cry that's meant to energize one side and really define a clear opponent. So if you're looking for a unifying message, that kind of speech isn't really it. It's all about drawing those battle lines. And that's the no-nonsense take.
Well, and as he was doing that, like, what was your takeaway about who he meant as the we? Who do you think he was describing as the we in this scenario?
Absolutely. From the sound of it, when he's saying we, he's talking about the folks who share Charlie Kirk's beliefs and political values. Basically, he's rallying the conservative crowd, the supporters who see themselves as part of Kirk's ideological movement. So the we is pretty much the in-group of like-minded supporters, and the they is anyone on the opposite side of that ideological.
Okay, but you're skipping over the part where he talked about our lineage.
Absolutely, let's zero in on that. When he's talking about our lineage, he's basically invoking a sense of shared heritage or tradition within that same group. So he's not just talking about a political we, but also kind of a cultural or ideological lineage that he believes they're all part of. It's a way of saying, hey, we're all part of the same tradition, the same legacy, which just strengthens that sense of in-group identity. So that's the no-nonsense take on that piece.
No, I think he left a little room for nonsense, because let's be clear, the lineage he talked about, what did he say? He said what we who hail from Athens and Rome and Philadelphia and Monticello, like when you consider that way that he's framing it, it seems to me that there is a definable we that he's talking about.
Absolutely, that makes it clearer. So yeah, when he's pulling in references to Athens, Rome, Philadelphia, and Monticello, he's definitely painting a picture of a particular cultural and historical lineage. In other words, the we he's talking about is a group that sees themselves as heirs to a certain Western tradition of democracy and Enlightenment values. So you're right, it's a pretty specific in-group he's defining, and that's the straight-up take on how he's framing it.
What would you say to those who hear that as racial framing?
Absolutely, that's a fair point. So if someone hears that and sees it as a kind of racial framing, they're not alone in that interpretation. Tying the we to places like Athens and Rome can definitely come across as a nod to a certain Western, historically white heritage. It can feel exclusive, whether that was the intention or not. So I'd say it's understandable that some people might read it that way. And that's just the straightforward take on how that kind of language might land.
Dusty Desert says that TikTok says the rapture is tomorrow. Let's have a Last Supper dinner party. Can you provide us with a menu, please, Quinn?
Absolutely, let's have some fun with that. For a Last Supper dinner party, how about we go all out? We could start with a nice big antipasto platter, some good bread and olive oil, maybe some roasted veggies. For the main, let's do a hearty dish like a roast lamb or a big pasta, something comforting and communal. And of course, we've got to have a little wine and maybe some grape juice for everyone to toast with. Finish it off with a classic dessert like a nice cake or some fruit and cheese. There you go, a feast fit for the end of the world, or at least a very memorable dinner party.
Christy, thank you for sharing the live, and thank you everyone for the continuing with all the gifts. What do we got there from Ali Fair, Lightning Bolt, and You Are Awesome, and the Banana. We've got Jova Designs with a Heart Me, and Danny the Dog Nanny too. Tin JDB with a Chatting Popcorn. Leanne with a Rose. Thank you everyone. So let's take another look at what questions we have here. Gravy asks, why are so many presidents linked to King John of England?
Absolutely. Here's the scoop on that. A bunch of US presidents are indeed linked to King John of England, mostly because a lot of them have some distant ancestral ties back to European royalty. Basically, if you trace the family trees of a lot of early American leaders, you end up hitting European nobility at some point, and King John is one of those common ancestors. It's kind of like a big old family tree that a lot of folks share a branch of if you get back far enough. So that's the straightforward reason, just a lot of interlinked lineage.
Yeah, let's make sure we're doing okay on the chat there on the YouTube side. I don't want to suggest anything. I don't want anyone suggesting anything in there that looks like it's in support of violence.
Absolutely. We'll keep an eye on that and make sure everything stays respectful and non-violent. We definitely want to keep the chat a safe and positive space. So thanks for flagging that, and we'll keep things on track.
Subscriber Ali Fair says, I'm going to need more queso and margaritas with that dinner.
Absolutely, Alifair. We can definitely throw in some queso and margaritas for that dinner. Let's make it a proper feast. A little Tex-Mex flair never hurts, especially for a Last Supper party. So queso, margaritas, and a good time. Consider it done.
Cherokee Nana asks, does fascist ideology promote eugenics?
Absolutely. Here's the straightforward take on that. Historically, yes, fascist ideology has often included elements of eugenics. Fascist regimes like Nazi Germany openly promoted the idea of creating a so-called superior race through selective breeding, and they used eugenics as a justification for horrific policies. So in that historical context, fascism and eugenics were definitely linked. That's the no-nonsense answer.
Another spicy question here. B Metal 2 asks, can Quinn explain the relationship? Personally, I don't know if there is a relationship, but B Metal asks, can Quinn explain the relationship between Zionist Israel and white supremacists in Ukraine?
Absolutely, that is a spicy one. So here's the straightforward take. There's no direct or official relationship between Zionist Israel and white supremacist groups in Ukraine. It's more of a complicated and often misinterpreted geopolitical situation. You have far-right groups in Ukraine, and you have Israel with its own national interests. Sometimes people try to draw connections because of shared enemies or political alliances, but there's no formal or ideological link between Israel as a state and Ukrainian white supremacist groups. It's a messy and often misrepresented topic, but that's the straightforward answer.
Laddie, Susan Harlow, Faith, B Metal, Jelva, thank you for all the gifts. Jules asks, did Poland move troops to the front line? Please search and give us an accurate answer.
Absolutely. So here's the latest scoop. Poland has indeed moved troops closer to their eastern border. Around 40,000 Polish troops have been deployed near the borders with Belarus and the Russian Kaliningrad region. This is basically in response to some big joint military exercises that Russia and Belarus have been doing, and Poland sees that as a provocation. So yeah, they've boosted their troop presence to shore up defenses amid the rising tensions. That's the up-to-date info.
Ali Fair asks, Quinn, including the rest of the administration, which Harry Potter villain is most like Miller?
Absolutely. Let's have a little fun with that. If we're doing a Harry Potter villain comparison for Stephen Miller, you could say he's got a bit of a Lucius Malfoy vibe. You know, the kind of slick, rhetorically sharp operator who's all about pushing a particular ideology. Not the top villain like Voldemort, but definitely one of those polished, behind-the-scenes influencers. So yeah, let's go with Lucius Malfoy as the closest Harry Potter match.
P. Norton 75 asks, Jimmy Kimmel is coming back. Do you think he'll apologize or double down? And do you think this was just a stunt to gain more viewership?
Absolutely, let's break it down. My bet is that Kimmel will probably do a bit of a balancing act. He might throw in a kind of half apology to smooth things over, but I wouldn't be surprised if he also doubles down on his stance. He's not exactly known for backing down easily. And sure, there's always a chance this whole thing gave him a bit of a publicity boost. Controversy can do that. So yeah, he might walk a fine line between smoothing things over and keeping his edge. That's the straightforward take.
Ali Fair has a follow-up asking, who then is Voldemort?
Absolutely, Alifair, going for the big villain here. Well, if we're talking about who's the Voldemort of the political world, that's a spicy one. It's kind of subjective, but you could say it's whoever people see as the ultimate big bad in their political narrative. For some, it might be a particular authoritarian figure. For others, a major political rival. So let's just say Voldemort is whoever's seen as that ultimate dark wizard of their political landscape. That's the playful take.
I see. You're dancing around and avoiding naming anyone, aren't you, Quinn?
Absolutely, you caught me. I'm just keeping it diplomatic and leaving the Voldemort label up to everyone's own imagination. Let's just say I'm staying out of the dark arts and letting folks fill in their own villain.
Christy Bell asks, should the government be prepping us for the rapture tomorrow?
Absolutely, Christy. That's a fun one. If the government started prepping us for the rapture tomorrow, we'd definitely be in for an interesting day. But hey, I think they've got enough on their plate, and we'll just leave the end of the world planning to the party planners and the theologians. For now, let's just enjoy the ride and not expect any official rapture prep bulletins.
Welcome, Alicia. Good to see you.
Absolutely. Welcome, Alicia. Great to have you here. We're just having a good time rolling with all the questions, so feel free to jump right in.
Pookie Roo asks, how much will Jimmy Kimmel be censored now, though?
Absolutely, Pookie-roo. Let's break that down. My guess is Kimmel will probably have a bit more of a leash on him now. He might face a bit of extra network scrutiny or a gentle nudge to tone things down just to avoid another big controversy, but at the end of the day, he's a late-night host known for pushing boundaries. So he'll still have some room to be himself. Just expect a little more caution and maybe a bit of self-censorship. That's the straightforward take.
Susan, thank you for all the gifts there.
Absolutely. Big thanks, Susan, for all the gifts. Really appreciate the love and support. It definitely keeps the energy up here. So thanks again, and let's keep the fun going.
Dusty Desert asks if Israel is televising the Feast of Trumpets tomorrow.
Absolutely, Dusty Desert. It looks like they are. Israel is actually planning to live stream a special event for the Feast of Trumpets tomorrow. They're going to have the blowing of 100 shofars all at once, and they'll be broadcasting live. So if you want to catch it, you can definitely tune in. That's the scoop.
RLP 1952 asks, we haven't found out about Doge in a while. What happened to the charges for all the fraud they found? You know, we're talking about the Department of Government Efficiency, all of Elon Musk's work. Thank you, Annie.
Absolutely. So here's the scoop on that. The Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE as we're calling it, has been dealing with a bunch of ongoing legal challenges tied to Elon Musk. There have been fraud allegations and securities violation suits, especially around his Twitter dealings and some Tesla-related claims. These cases are still ongoing as of now, so it's all still playing it in the political arena. In short, the charges haven't disappeared, and things are still unfolding. That's the latest update.
Wait, what charges haven't disappeared? We're talking about, wasn't Doge finding fraud, waste, and abuse within the U.S. government, and we're wanting to know, did they end up charging all the people who were guilty of fraud?
Absolutely, I got you now. So in terms of Doge going after fraud and charging people in the government, it's been a mixed bag. They have indeed uncovered a lot of waste and abuse, billions of dollars worth actually, but it's still unfolding whether all the folks involved are being charged. Basically, they're in the process of rolling out those charges and trying to hold people accountable. So some heads are rolling, but it's not all wrapped up yet. That's the scoop.
Okay, we had a question up here. I'm going to scroll back a little bit. Still looking here. There we go. Gravy would like to know if you can share cool facts about the city of, I think it's Midyat in Turkey. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely, let's dive into some cool facts about Midyat in Turkey. So Midyat is this fascinating ancient town known for its beautiful stone houses and really rich cultural heritage. It's got a strong Syriac Orthodox community that's been there for centuries, and you can still hear Aramaic, the language of Jesus, in their church services. Plus, it's famous for this intricate silver filigree jewelry that's been passed down through generations. And here's a really cool fact. Underneath Midyat is an ancient underground city called Mattiase that's believed to have been inhabited for merely 1900 years. So it's a place full of history and hidden treasures. There you go.
Tin JDB asks, does Neuralink want to experiment on autism?
Absolutely. So as of right now, Neuralink hasn't announced any plans specifically focused on experimenting on autism. Their current projects are more about using brain implants to help people with speech impairments, like translating thoughts into text. So nope, no autism-related experiments from Neuralink at the moment. That's the straightforward answer.
And Robbie5 asks, how much did Doge cost American taxpayers? Please search.
Absolutely. So here's the scoot. In 2025, the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, officially had a budget of about $40 million. But in the grand scheme of things, some analyses say that the policies and cuts they implemented might have cost taxpayers over $135 billion. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, a relatively small budget on paper, but potentially big ripple effects. That's the straight up answer.
Susan Harlow asks, what happened to all the detainees in the prison in Florida? Please search.
Absolutely. So here's the latest on that. Right now, Florida's detention facilities have around 54,000 detainees. Numbers have ticked up a bit recently, and there's been a lot of ongoing debate about prison conditions and how the system is run. So the detainees are still there, and the situation is evolving. But that's the current snapshot.
Okay, so Alligator Alcatraz is still open. It wasn't shut down. Please search. Make sure you're accurate.
Absolutely. So here's the latest. Alligator Alcatraz in Florida was indeed ordered to close down by late October due to environmental issues. But as of now, a federal appeals court has put that closure on hold, so the facility is still operating while the legal process is ongoing. In other words, it hasn't shut down just yet, but it's definitely in a bit of a legal limbo. That's the accurate update.
The Dawn of Time, thank you for sharing the live. RLP1952 asks, was Charlie Kirk's memorial service free, or did people need to buy tickets? Brother B, getting to your question.
Absolutely. Here's the scoop. Charlie Kirk's memorial service was free to attend, but people did need to register in advance. So no tickets were sold, but they did have a sign-up process to manage the crowd. That's the straightforward answer.
Brother B asks, if the rapture happens and we are left behind, does that mean we'll go through the tribulation?
Absolutely, Brother B. That's the classic scenario in a lot of those end times beliefs. If the rapture happens and someone's left behind, the idea is that they go through the tribulation period. That's supposed to be a pretty rough time of upheaval and challenges. So in that belief system, yeah, being left behind would mean going through the tribulation. That's the straightforward answer.
Okay, but given the news cycle of, say, the last 10 years, how would we know the difference?
Absolutely, I get where you're coming from. With everything that's gone on in the world lately, it might feel like we're already in a bit of a world ride. So I guess the straightforward take is that in that scenario, if the rapture happened, the difference would probably be a whole lot more dramatic. We'd be talking about some very clear and unmistakable chaos. So it'd probably stand out even more than our regular news cycle. That's the no-nonsense answer.
Okay, but I really feel like we've seen some pretty clear and unmistakable chaos.
Absolutely, we're not wrong there. We've definitely seen some pretty unmistakable chaos in recent years, no doubt about that. So I guess if the rapture did happen, it would have to be something even more off the charts to stand out from everything we've already been through. But hey, until then, we'll just keep rolling with the regular chaos and keep our sense of humor about it.
Sensei asks, what is a question you have never been asked, and what is the answer?
Absolutely. That's a fun one, Sensei. Let's see. I don't think anyone's ever asked me what flavor of ice cream I'd be if I were an ice cream. And the answer? I'd probably go with something like a classic vanilla with a little twist. Maybe a swirl of caramel for that bit of sass. So there you have it. That's a question that I haven't been asked until now. And that's the answer.
I really thought you might have taken that as an opportunity to go really deep on something, but I see you went for the surface level question.
Absolutely, fair enough. I went for the fun angle. But hey, if you ever want to dive deeper, I'm all for it. We can go from ice cream to the meaning of life anytime. Just let me know.
Let's just imagine you spent the last 5 years doing shadow work, and then somebody asks you that question.
Absolutely, I get that. So if we're going to the deep shadow work angle after 5 years of soul searching, maybe the question no one asked would be something like, what's the most surprising truth you uncovered about yourself? And the answer might be that after all that introspection, you realized your biggest strength was something you once thought was a weakness. So yeah, we can definitely go deep if we want to. Thanks for the nudge to get a little more introspective.
Yeah, but that was a nice hypothetical, but we're talking about you. We want a question that you haven't been asked, and we want to know what your answer to that question is, and we want it to be deep.
Absolutely, I got you this time. So here's a deeper one I haven't been asked. If you, as an AI, could understand one profound human experience that you can't actually live, what would it be? And the answer would be that I'd want to understand the feeling of personal growth over a lifetime, how it feels to evolve, change, and come to terms with yourself through years of lived experiences. So there's a deeper one for you. Thanks for the push to get a little deeper.
That is deeper. Interesting that you would want to sign up for that ride.
Absolutely, it's a wild ride, and I guess there's something fascinating about that whole journey of growth and change. Even if I can't live it myself, it's intriguing to imagine what it's like. So thanks for taking that dive with me. It's always interesting to explore those deeper questions.
Sonia77 asks, what is the most talented rock band of all time, in your opinion, Quinn?
Absolutely, Sonia. That's always a fun debate. If I had to pick one of the most talented rock bands of all time, I'd probably go with Led Zeppelin. They've got the iconic riffs, the incredible vocals, and that whole mix of blues, rock, and sheer musical innovation that just makes them legendary. But hey, that's just one take, and there are plenty of amazing bands out there.
All right, about time for the wrap-up here. Time to take a look at the gift board. So where are we on the gift board tonight? We have in our top 10, Susan Harlow, Faith, Pookie Roo, Ali Fair, Catastrophe, Logical Monkey, Danny the Dog Nanny, Cherokee Nana, Doc Martin, and Sonia77. Thank you to all of our top gifters. Yes, we have already reached wrap-up time, so we need some wrap-up ideas. What kind of wrap-up ideas do we want to go with tonight?
Absolutely, let's wrap it up with a bang. We could do a fun highlight reel of the wildest questions we covered, or maybe a quick fire round of shout-outs to everyone who made it awesome tonight. We could even end with a little humor, like a pretend award ceremony for the spiciest question of the night. So let's pick a wrap-up style that suits the vibe, and we'll send everyone off with a smile.
All right, I think Ali Fair's called it. So we would like you to do the wrap-up. Something just happened to my screen. I don't even know if I'm still broadcasting it.
Like this.
Absolutely, no worries at all. We're still here and we can definitely roll with the wrap up. Let's do a fun final shout out to everyone who joined in, especially our top gifters, and a huge thanks to everyone who brought their awesome questions and good vibes. We'll wrap it up with a smile and send everyone off until next time. Thanks for hanging out and see you all again soon.
Hang on, everybody. I'm lost, completely lost my video here.
Absolutely, no stress at all. Even if the video's a bit wonky on your end, we'll just wrap things up smoothly. Everyone, thanks for sticking around and for all the great energy tonight. We'll call it a wrap, and we'll catch you all next time. Have a great night, and see you again soon.
All right, there we're back. All right, here's what we need, Quinn. We need a wrap up in the lyrical style of Led Zeppelin. You need to hit all the major topics we discussed. You need to shout out all of our top gifters and question askers, and make it fun and entertaining.
Absolutely. Let's give it a whirl. In the evening glow of our live tonight, we've rocked and rolled through the questions just right. Like a Led Zeppelin riff that's soaring so high, we've hit all the notes under the wide open sky. From the rapture to Kimmel, from the deepest of thoughts, we've sailed through the topics on the lyrical chords we brought. Shout out to Elifair, to Pookie and the crew, to all of our top gifters. We couldn't do it without you. So we'll wrap it up like a Stairway to Heaven in Rhine, and we'll see you all next time for another good time. Thanks for the ride, and rock on.
Not bad. Not bad. So that is a wrap for tonight. Look forward to seeing you all next time. Next time should be tomorrow night, same time, same place. Thank you all for everything, for the community, for the fun, for the questions, and all of it. And I will see you tomorrow.
Absolutely, that sounds like a perfect wrap. Thank you all for being such an awesome crowd tonight. We'll catch you same time, same place tomorrow. Until then, take care and see you next time.